I tell you what, I am a poor excuse for someone's meaning of life. But then again, I think anybody is. Hi, I'm Gina with Hope and Cope. Here we talk about essential skills we need to have our best life in spite of someone else's painful and sometimes even tragic life choices. Today, we're going to talk about when we try to fit people and things into that God shaped hole in our hearts. Last week, we talked about how back in the early years of my husband's injury that he had in 1992, when we were both very young, and there was a long, extensive time of handicap and surgeries and chronic pain, and how I really wanted to be able to fill all of the needs that my husband had, and I was struggling with how can I do more and be more present and just be more everything for him, and how I felt like the Lord showed me that there's a God-shaped hole and it's meant only for God, and God wouldn't let me fill it even if I could, but it's too big of a job. It's too big of a position for me to fill. I can't. I can exhaust myself trying to be everything for him so that he has substantial reason and desire and drive to live in spite of the suffering that he had. And so I was grateful for this revelation that God gave me, that that is God's job, not my job, and that I can try to be good and stay in my lane and do what I can, but that I do not have to take on that God job of trying to make Rob happy enough, strong enough, fulfilled enough to be willing or able to endure his heartache. Well, then, after I taped that episode, it occurred to me that even though I had this revelation, and it was great and it relieved me of a lot of pressure for all of those years, it still is something very easy to do, and it had crept into my life, and I had tried to fit people and things into my God-shaped hole because I had longings and I had needs, and sometimes it's just easier to turn to people or things and not take the time and the energy and the spiritual discipline to give those things to God. I had some precious relationships, have some precious relationships that really bring me a lot of joy. And so it's just easy when you have these really hard places, these hard wounds, these emptinesses inside of you, when you have people that bring you a lot of joy, your friends, your siblings, your grandchildren, your children, all these relationships, it's easy to just say, oh, well, I'll let that make me happy. I'll pour into that. I'll call her every day. I'll call her 3 times a day. I'll spend this extreme amount of time and effort and thought and intention on people instead of where I need to focus on my relationship with the Lord and let Him meet those needs inside of me and give me that firm foundation, really firm foundation. We're going to talk about that in just a second. And then let all those other things be added to it, but have my firm foundation be on the rock of my salvation, on the rock of my relationship with the Lord, so that when all these trials come, I am grounded and I'm not looking to people to fulfill me and to give me meaning and to make me feel loved and to reassure me and reassure me and reassure me. And it's too much, even if I asked it of 10 people. And not just one, and that's not how it usually happens. We tend to pick 1 or 2 people that really we love and they love us, and so we just sort of drill down and we put a lot of emphasis on them and we put a lot of pressure on them to make us happy, and it's just too much for any one person. So I talked last week about don't try to fill that God-shaped hole. Turn those people over to God, whether it's someone in an addiction, someone with a deep sorrow, a loss of a loved one, any sort of thing that's just It's too big. If you can fix it with a nice lunch and a bouquet of flowers and a good sweet talk and conversation and, a warm hug, that's fine. That's friendship. But I'm talking to you about trying to be that person's everything, or that person, or you wanting that person to be your everything. So during the years of my husband's addiction, I also had to re-enter the workforce. I've talked about that in the past. And it was very rewarding for me. And I excelled in my positions and was very fulfilled and got a lot of attention for my work and my creativity, and was well liked in the different positions that I was in. And so I also could just really pour myself into my job, because as hard as work is, and as much as a lot of times what we do gets overlooked, you get acknowledged enough, you get the strokes enough that it does feel like it helps to, well, this part of my life is falling apart and this person's not making me feel meaningful or fulfilled, or I'm invisible to this person, or this person's rejecting me. But over here, I'm being validated, I'm being propped up, I'm being acknowledged for my talents and my abilities and my personality and my intelligence, or whatever it is. And I just want to encourage you, don't let anything fill that God-shaped hole. God is the only one that's big enough and faithful enough and smart enough to come in and meet us where we are, and to love us through our sorrows, and to minister to us what we need to know and what we need to hear and how we need to heal. And it's just too much for any position, a title, an influence that you have, or a person or a family. So in the Bible, there's this story about a wise man and a foolish man, and the wise man built his house on the rock. And when the rains came and the storms came, his house was sturdy. And then the foolish man built his house upon the sand. And when those same trials came, those same storms came, his house fell down because it wasn't built on that firm foundation. And our friends don't mean to let us down. Even, let's say you've got a good job. Let's say it's even your own business. All these things are fallible. All these things can let us down. Build your foundation on the rock of Jesus Christ, and don't get off that rock no matter what. Don't stray from that firm foundation. And then all those other things, those can be rooms in the houses and floors of the houses. Build yourself a castle if you want to, but build it on that firm foundation, so that when the storms of life come, you're not putting your hope in people or things or money or events or your own intelligence or your own skills and talents. You have put your hope, in Jesus, so that whatever happens, you can stand the test of that tragedy. So I'm not sure if this has hit home with you. If you're thinking about somebody that you're like, yeah, I really do try to fit that person in that God-shaped hole. I really do expect a lot out of this relationship. I really do count on that person every time I'm down, every time I'm sad, every time I need a pick-me-up. I have to call that person or be with that person, because I can't get that anywhere else. I want to encourage you to let that person go. Let that person go, or that thing, or that entity, that status, whatever it is. Let it go and spend the time you need to build your relationship with Jesus, and let him be the rock in your life that will never be moved. I hope that this video was helpful. I hope it was encouraging to you. And if you have questions about Jesus being my rock, I have a video in the description box about Christian salvation and what that is. And I'd love for you to check that out. And I've got a song and Bible verse down there as well if you want to look at that. I try to encourage people in my description box as well as my videos. And if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button. Consider subscribing and sharing it with a friend. And I love you, and I'm praying for you. And until next time, God bless.